I'm Greg Johnston, CEO of Carl Data Solutions, an industrial Internet of Things company that provides big data solutions for monitoring critical infrastructure. Carl Data offers machine learning and predictive analytics features through our cloud-based applications to deliver key asset-saving operational insights from massive amounts of data. Carl Data trades on the CSE, symbol CRL, and the Pink, symbol CDTAF. For more details on Carl Data, please visit carlsolutions.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is Hilliard MacBeth, author of the book When the Bubble Burst, Surviving the Canadian Real Estate Crash. He's also a portfolio and financial advisor in Edmonton. Welcome back to the show, Hilliard.
Nice to be speaking with you again, Jim.
The BC budget was passed on, or not passed on Monday, but presented on Monday. And several measures there to deal with real estate, whether they're useful or not, or have been introduced too late to have any useful effect, we don't know. And some have even said they could cause a real estate crash. So, first of all, the biggest item, I guess, is increasing the foreign buyer tax from 15 to 20% and expanding the area that it covers in BC to not just the greater Vancouver area, but the Fraser Valley, the Okanagan, which would be Kelowna, Nanaimo, and Victoria. In other words, all the major urban centers in British Columbia.
Yeah, that's a big one, and it's hard to know how big an impact that's going to have, because it's possible that some people will find a way around it. You know, there's a lot of ways to structure deals that would cause the foreign buyer to look like a domestic buyer, and but one of the other loopholes that they've closed, which is possibly even bigger than that one, is the revealing of the beneficial owners of trust and numbered companies, and that's a huge factor, because if there's a lot of transactions in the $2 to $3 million range and higher that are being used as a way to hide money from the authorities in China or elsewhere, this new provision with the revealing the beneficial owners and having a government website that would actually list all the names of all the beneficial owners, that's not going to be something that people that are in that category are going to be happy with. They're either going to not do it, or they're going to move on to some other location where they can find a way to do it. Transparency International revealed that two of the biggest countries in the world for providing loopholes to people that want to launder money are Canada and the United States. And although we have the laws in place, there's just too many ways to get around them. So this change that the BC government has done, it doesn't apply all across Canada, it's just in BC. But it would definitely throw a monkey wrench into that game. So we're going to find out here pretty soon if that game is how significant that is in terms of holding these house prices up. And I suspect it is. There will be some impact.
Now, of course, if you're somebody who just bought a company in BC and you want to move here to watch over your company, a foreign buyer's tax could really kibosh new business, couldn't it?
Well, I don't know. If you buy a company and you're moving here, then you're generally not hiding. You're basically going to let people know what you're doing, and there's nothing secretive about it. But other measures in the BC budget that I noticed could very well be a problem. There's quite a few measures related to where the businesses will have to pay the healthcare premium, which is called MSP in BC. In the form of a payroll tax, and the individual will no longer have to pay it, and that's a fairly big cost for. Now, if you're small enough, I think the revenue cutoff is quite small, around $500,000. You don't have to pay that, but the companies over that threshold will have to pay it. So there's a lot in this budget, and it's a mixture of sort of NDP kind of bash the rich kind of thing, and then also the pressure from political pressure from people that are upset about the high cost of housing in the lower mainland of Vancouver, and watching just not being able to get into the housing market, and worrying that they won't be able to live there much longer. So there's a lot of things going on. And if the housing market corrects, it was showing signs of correcting already in the single-family home segment anyway. And if it does correct, turn from a correction into a crash, this budget will get the blame, but we'll never know whether it was this budget that caused it or not. But there's enough in this budget that you could legitimately argue that this was a tipping point.
Also, the NDP is proposing a 2% speculation tax. That's on top of the foreign buyers tax. Are they deciding again that, taxes are the way to do stuff?
Well, there's a lot of tax, and again, it's like if you're a speculator, but you pay BC income taxes, you'll be allowed to speculate without paying the speculator's tax, which is going up to 2% next year. But if you're a foreign speculator that has paying no tax in BC, you'll be hit with it. So I don't know how they're going to collect it. People that don't pay any tax in BC, it's going to be hard to collect. So it might be more of a symbolic thing than anything. But the thing that wasn't mentioned in this budget, but in combination with this budget, will have a big impact is the change. And you and I have talked about this before, that the federal tax department put through. CRA now says that everybody that transacts a property, whether they qualify for the principal residence or not, will have to apply. Will have to record the sale and then apply to get the exemption of the principal residence. And that's going to really hit a lot of people, a lot of companies. If companies were formed that were speculating in real estate, that's the combination of all of these things is going to really affect them. Now, there is one loophole, apparently. I don't know if this is correct, whether they didn't close this loophole, but they plan to. But the flipping of condo contracts to buy a condo, pre-completion contracts to buy condos, is not mentioned in this. So whether they're going to do something separately on that, or whether the developers that are building the condos now urge them not to do it because they want to get the current wave of condo completions sold before they bring in a tax, I don't know. But it's very odd omission. So I suspect at some point, maybe next year, they'll bring that into it as well. So they are taking a step that they're going to start a pre-construction condo database. The developers will have to collect comprehensive information about what are called assignments, where people flip the right to buy a condo, kind of like a stock option on a stock, and then some of them never actually complete the purchase of the condo, and that way they avoid detection. But that database is going to be created as well. So I think the combination of all these things will be a significant damper on the housing market in BC.
We'll have more with Hilliard MacBeth right after the break.
Arctic Star Exploration, operated by a team of proven mine finders, is focused on diamonds in Finland and the Northwest Territories of Canada. A work program is planned for our Finland property that contains diamond-bearing kimberlite. Arctic Star trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol ADD, and the Frankfurt Exchange, symbol 82A1. Please visit our website at arcticstar.ca or call us at 604-689-1799.
I'm Brian Fowler, president of Blind Creek Resources Limited, listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, ticker symbol BCK. Blind Creek is focused in the Yukon, Northwest Territories, and British Columbia. The company's key property is the Blend Project, one of the largest undeveloped lead zinc silver deposits in Western Canada, plus plans to advance the recently acquired, fully permitted historic engineer gold mine in the Atlan district of northwestern BC. Check us out at blindcreekresources.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Hilliard MacBeth. Hilliard, if there's going to be a damper on housing in BC, does it mean less construction, fewer homes, and again, you just create more of a housing crisis?
Exactly. Well, the thing is that the housing crisis was not really helped by the building trend in the last few years, which has been luxury, 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 and expensive, expensive, expensive. So one of the things that, maybe is part of the problem is that there just isn't enough being built that people can actually afford. So, for instance, there's no shortage of houses in West Van and North Van that are for sale, but they start basically there's over 400 of them above $3 million right now, and there's close to 800 of them for sale above $1 million. But those aren't affordable for the average person. So developers probably were doing what they felt was the right thing. Let the free market decide, and they were building things as expensive as they could, trying to catch that foreign buyer or catch that speculator or catch those rare people in Vancouver that can afford a $3 million house. But there just aren't that many of those people. So what is needed is something different, where you actually get housing that people can afford to move into, and that's not just in Vancouver. That's all across Canada. The government decided probably 30, 40 years ago to get out of the housing business altogether, other than just providing wonderful incentives on the financing side, and just let the free market decide. So the free market has spoken. You've got a massive housing bubble, but a lot of it is in parts of the market that people really don't want. So there is a trend back the other way with what they call purpose-built rentals that are being built. CMHC has wonderful financing. It's under 3%. It's like 2.2 or 2.5% if you're building an apartment building for the purpose of rental. And there's some of that happening, but most of the land has been developed into condos, which the profit margins, of course, are much higher, and you don't have the responsibility of continuing to own the building. Once you sell out all the individual units, you take your profit and you can move on. So I think now this is probably what we're going to see is the government, and they did say something about that, although I don't think there was anything too specific about it, about the encouragement of building more affordable housing. And of course, one of the reasons the government moved away from helping build affordable housing which was common in the 70s and the early 80s, was it was a disaster. So they had all these problems. I don't know how many people remember the multiple unit residential building, or MURB as it was called, but it was a tax incentive to build properties that would be rented out, and it was a huge tax break for doctors and people with high incomes. But it turned out to be a disaster, and so there. I don't know what the right way for obviously leaving it entirely to the private sector to decide what kind of housing to build didn't work. In the past, the government getting involved in deciding didn't work either. So it's going to be a challenge to figure out what to do next.
Well, the BC government has announced money to build affordable housing. One of the problems is they don't have a lot of land to build it on, so they have to rely on municipalities to be generous with their land. And politically, they may not agree.
Yeah, the last 20 years or so has been a dance between the municipalities and the developers, and the developers have said, well, this is what we want to do, and this is what we want to build, and so if the government throws money into it, I guess the government can lure people into building something that they don't want to build if the government provides enough money and gives them enough incentives, and that's probably what we're going to try. And it's not like there's a shortage of land in Greater Vancouver area. It's just a lot of the land that is would be available is not available because people maybe don't agree with developing it. And like for instance, the university endowment lands would be one example of this huge, massive amount of land there. Would people agree to developing that? I don't know. I'm guessing there would be a lot of opposition. So, it'll be now maybe this problem will be solved just because the prices of everything will drop enough that it'll be affordable again without these extra measures in the government involvement, a heavy government hand getting in there. But I suspect that's not going to happen either. I think the government will give it a try. But it is definitely this is a trend away from this is a reversal of trend of the last 40 years, which has been let the free market decide. The free market knows better what type of housing to build and how to build it, and the government should stay out of it. So if the government does come in with a heavy hand, it's a new departure.
We'll have more with Hilliard MacBeth right after this.
I'm Bill McWilliam, president of Cascadero Copper, CCD on the TSX Venture Exchange. Cesium is one of the world's rarest metals with a growing industrial demand. Drilling is underway on our Tehran property in Argentina to prove up a cesium resource. Cascadero's patent-pending leach process has the potential to make Cascadero the lowest cost supplier of cesium in the world. Visit our website, cascadero.com, or phone us at 604-924-5504.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're chatting with Hilliard MacBeth. Hilliard, one of the suggestions is if you want affordable housing, why not put rapid transit down into the Fraser Valley, accessing a lot of affordable real estate for people?
Well, yeah, there is a lot of real estate. Although I think it's a lot of it's agricultural, and some people worry about moving all this agricultural land out of the best purpose. That's probably the better purpose for that land. To have people commute for hours a day on the rapid transit, and Edmonton's going through something similar right now. They're building billions of dollars worth of rapid transit out to the, and of course Edmonton's very sprawled out right now, and they're debating it in Toronto as well. However, with driverless cars and the next phase of all of that, maybe people won't want to ride on transit. Transit's very expensive. It's just ridiculously expensive. So if people don't necessarily want to ride on rapid transit, maybe that's going to be another white elephant for the government. The other thing to think about, though, I think is, and this is kind of a bigger trend, is, do people really need to travel an hour a day to spend 8 hours in the office and then travel home another hour? With technology now, maybe people could work from other than everybody assembling in one place. I've noticed this over the last few years with a lot of people go into the office and work on email and phone and do all this stuff and never even interact with another person, which they obviously could have done that from some other location. So the concentration of people in the downtown core, which is what's causing this issue with traffic and rapid transit and housing to some extent as well. Maybe we're going to move beyond that, and then you won't have these problems won't be as big as they have been. I know some companies like TELUS in Alberta and BC. I don't know if they're doing it in BC, but in Alberta for sure they are. And they built a new building in downtown Calgary. Bad timing because there's a huge surplus of office space in downtown Calgary. But it's specifically designed so that a very small number of the people would actually be in the office at any given time. And they share the desk, they share the computers, and they're expected to not be in the office. They're expected to be out, doing whatever it is they do. So that will help a lot with commuting and with density in downtown. And some office building owners are going to be unhappy if they find out that Calgary doesn't need 300,000 or 400,000 people downtown anymore, because they're all working out of Starbucks or out of home or out of their car or something like that. There's a lot of changes happening right now, and unfortunately these big projects have to be, they have to be started 10 years or 5 or 10 years before they actually are completed, and the world could change a lot in that space of time.
Sure, and then the robots are taking over jobs as well, so who needs the humans anyway?
Well, you have this image. I was in Toronto a month ago, and the high-rise office towers in Toronto are mostly occupied by, they've got bank names on them: Royal Bank, TD Tower, Bank of Montreal, all the big banks. And there's just, hundreds of thousands of millions of square feet of office space. I was just walking around downtown looking up at these big high-rise towers, which at the time they were built were like, this was just amazing. It made Canada feel like a world-class place. And you look at these towers and you think, well, who's going to occupy them? The banks don't need to have 10 floors of clerks, doing the accounting for the bank as to what the loans are doing or what the deposits are doing and all that. That's all done electronically now. So they could easily move the whole administration of of the bank to some small location like Mississauga, and just as long as they have fiber optic high-speed internet, they don't need to have everybody assembled in a downtown office core. So, and of course, the second part of that, which is perhaps even bigger, is the banks just don't need nearly as many people either. So now I don't think there's any bank headquarters in Vancouver, but it's things like that. The traditional head office model with hundreds of employees assembling every day in the morning and then going home every night. That model may be over, and it'll take 10, 20 years for it to unwind. But whatever replaces it, it probably doesn't require somebody to sit on rapid transit for an hour in the morning and another hour at night.
And of course, that does affect real estate. Now, with rapid transit in the Lower Mainland, every time they've built a rapid transit line, high-rise towers appear around it almost instantaneously. So, the phrase, build it and they will come, has been true here. But whether people would gather in high-rise centers in the Fraser Valley, that's to be seen. They wouldn't have to use agricultural land. They have lots of town site land where it's all single home construction or maybe 3-story apartment buildings. Those could easily become 30-story towers if they had the inkling of where rapid transit was going to go. But again, no sign that's going to happen in BC anytime soon.
Yeah, no, I think the density options, one of the things that North America has that really, in Australia too, that Europe doesn't have, and Europe's got higher densities and their cities seem to work to a degree anyway, better than ours, is they don't have this love of the single family home. And in order to build the density that was probably needed in Vancouver, is we need to move away from the single family home to something else. Now, the high-rise luxury condo might not be solving the problem, but something like multiple units, even 3 or 4 story row housing could, which is very common in other parts of the world. The density would be much, much higher, and probably would solve a lot of these problems we're talking about. So, but if people desperately need a single-family home with a little plot of land and a garage and a yard, then the market will accommodate that. But if you actually gave people an alternative that was close into downtown, walkable to different places, didn't require them to spend $1 million on a less than 1,000 square foot luxury condo, I suspect you'd have a lot of people lined up to either rent it or to buy it. And but I just don't know how you get there. That's the part. I think it'll happen, but I don't know how. It'll be very, very interesting to see how it unfolds the next 5 to 10 years.
Hilliard, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Nice to talk to you.
My guest has been Hilliard MacBeth, author of the book When the Bubble Burst, Surviving the Canadian Real Estate Crash. His website, macbethgroup.com. If you have any questions for our guests or the show, you can send them to info@howstreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HowStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HowStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.